What's up? Welcome to the Modern Spirituality Show. I'm Ben Decker, and I am super excited to introduce you to today's guest. His name is Diego Perez. He's a meditator and a New York Times bestselling author. And you might know him by his pen name on Instagram and various social media networks, which is Yung Pueblo. Online, he's got an audience of over 2.2 million people, and his writing focuses on the power of self healing, creating healthy relationships, and the wisdom that comes when we truly work on knowing ourselves. His two books, Inward, which I've got here, and Clarity and Connection, were both instant bestsellers. And great news, Diego's got a third book, Lighter, which will be coming out on October 4th, 2022. And I'm sure this one is going to also be an instant bestseller. You're on fire right now. Everything you're doing is resonating. Thanks for being here, Diego.
Thank you so much for having me, Ben. I've been particularly excited about this conversation of ours coming up, and yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, I love what you are bringing to the community through your work, especially when it comes to your poetry, just the quality of poetry. And I also really appreciate the the sort of alter ego that you introduced yourself to the community with. Of course, in writing, the concept of a pen name is
hmm
tried and true, and also in spiritual communities, having a spiritual name, having a name that represents a new chapter of your life, is also something we hear about quite a bit. I'd love to explore that a little bit and explore where Young Pueblo came from, and when you might use Diego Perez and when you're using Young.
Oh, I use Diego Perez everywhere in real life. So only if I'm ever like, even when I'm at events, I'll like be introduced as Young Pueblo, but then it's just Diego Perez. It's literally just a pen name that I try to use to frame everything that I'm writing inside of. And it's something that became really clear to me when I started meditating that not only am I really in need of evolving and maturing, but it seemed like humanity as a whole was in this phase where it's really starting to blossom and grow up. And what kind of hit me was that when we are really young, when we're in kindergarten, there are some basic fundamentals that our teachers trying to teach us, to clean up after ourselves, to tell the truth, to not hit each other, to share, to generally be kind with another. And we may be able to do that on the individual level, but as a whole, and I'm talking humanity as a whole, we have not mastered these fundamental things yet.
Right.
And I think once we get there, we'll actually be a mature people. So young pueblo literally means young people. And the word pueblo, it has a lot of definitions, um, especially throughout Latin America. And from where I'm from in Ecuador, it really means like the masses of impoverished people. So I think, we're not only growing, but we're learning how to flourish.
Right, right. Yeah, I love that so much, and um, I really resonate, especially with that last component of the awareness of the young, impoverished people. There's a lot of times when we hear in Western news media about the next generation, Gen Z, and young people
hmm
today, there is this total distortion where it's a hyper. They talk about the privileged Gen Z as if that's the entirety of Gen Z population across the globe. When
It's really true.
we're looking at a lot of very poor, impoverished young people.
Yeah, and it's an impoverishment that it really runs deep. It's not just in terms of like material poverty, but also in terms of who we are
Yeah.
internally, right? Like we don't fundamentally know ourselves as individuals, and I think it's definitely something that spans all generations because it's like whether you're 20 or whether you're 60 or whether you're 80 years old, I bet there's still um, some healing that can be done. some growth that can happen, some evolution that can happen, some letting go.
Right.
So it's really, it's encompassing humanity as a whole, that we have a lot of growing up to do. And I feel like this healing generation that's emerging, because healing has become so much more popular, so much more accessible. um, I think it's quite exciting, and it gives me a lot of hope that we're going to be able to grow.
Oh yeah, definitely. I feel the same way, and I often will see the little signals that the next generation is really showing us, their innovation, their ability to solve really big problems through creativity. And I even remember when, we're about the same age, when we were younger. I remember I loved learning about science and engineering, and I loved really, really engaging with ideas and concepts around things like sustainability. And and I think that I ended up going really deep in a mental health direction because of
Mm.
my own mental health needs, but I love to see so many of these younger kids and these next generation, these high school and college students today, have this like new sort of holistic, deeper, more conscious awareness of relationships, of relating, of their place on a global scale, and I think work like yours penetrating into that community is a huge contribution.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and it's interesting because like when I write something, I don't really know where it's gonna land, right? Who's gonna find it useful and who's gonna appreciate it. And as things have continued to grow over time, it's been exciting just seeing like a sort of a wider range of people. So like not only do people who have gone through divorces send me messages that either clarity and connection or inward were really helpful through that difficult time, but also people who are in high school. Like I'll get letters from people who are like, this has been really helpful through a tough time. And to me it just feels like, that's, I can't ask for more, because that's my hope, that when I'm actually writing something, that I'm writing something that people will find useful.
And so as a creator, what's your process like?
It's interesting. I try to like move with the waves of creativity because I don't think it comes all the time, especially for me. Like there are some times where a whole month will pass and I won't write anything new. And then there are other times where a whole month I'll just be writing constantly. And what I try to do is stay really attuned to that feeling of creativity. And when I feel it come, like I listen and I really try to just make space. And whether if it's really early in the morning or at night, or when I'm like on a plane somewhere, wherever it may be, I'll just start writing things down. I've also learned to not force it. Like there are times where I'll put this pressure on myself to write, and I found that if that creative energy isn't there, then what I write doesn't really come out as clear as it does if I were to listen to the initial like instinctive energy. So I kind of try to catch it when it comes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's really cool. And also it's the reality of not forcing something. Um, you're Would you say that you have always been a writer? That poetry and the written word is a way that you've expressed yourself since you were young?
No, no, that's what was kind of shocking, was that like I've never ever thought of myself as a writer or an artist or even a creative person. Um, I really loved being around people, and like the type of work that I used to do when I was in high school was a lot of like organizing and activism work.
Mm.
And like that's what I really found very energizing. Um, but I've never gone into the arts. And it wasn't until I started meditating, like after I did 3 silent 10-day courses in the Goenka tradition, I felt like this, my mind just generally felt lighter, and it felt like this creativity started bubbling up. And I was also so shocked and moved by the fact that I felt like healing was actually happening. And I didn't know that healing was even really possible. Like I grew up in a way where if something was ailing you in your mind or your body, that you would just have to deal with it for the rest of your life. So to think of, this like weight that I was holding in my mind, for it to be relieved, I was shocked by that. So I think the mixture of my mind feeling lighter and also actually feeling that that healing was happening kind of spurred me on to start writing.
Mhm. And did you get into writing as a therapeutic tool, or was it more like journaling?
It was more like trying to process what I was understanding, because I felt like I was learning a lot about a lot through meditating. Like in
Mhm.
some ways, I remember the first 10-day course that I did. Like I felt like I learned more in those 10 days than in 4 years of college. And I, not only was I learning about like the laws of like ultimate reality by being able to observe the truth within the framework of the body, but I was also learning a lot about conventional life, like about, how I had spent so much time ignoring my emotions, and how, because I was ignoring my emotions, it made my relationships really surface level. And so I started writing a lot about like, you know, sort of like Phoenix type poetry, like how you hit rock bottom and then like you can come up and change yourself, and that over time like evolved into just like I don't know, trying to put words to different parts of my life, and then also words to the different things that I was understanding.
Mhm. Yeah, love that.